Hey you guys, it's Britt. Tonight we're here with a little bit of an update on Ruby Franke from her sister Bonnie. She has chosen to speak out yet again, and I haven't even watched this video. I figured that I would make for it would make for a good reaction, so we can hear kind of what she has to say, updated thoughts wise. Is it different than what she said before? I will go ahead and link my other video where I reacted to her first initial thoughts down below for anyone that is following this. But if you're interested, please keep watching. Alright you guys, so just for some stats on this video right now, it has 191,000 views. It was uploaded one day ago, and it has 8.4 thousand likes to 2.9 thousand dislikes, which I find kind of interesting. So is the dislike ratio just simply because she's speaking about this? Is it simply because she's Ruby's sister? Is it because of this whole situation? I don't know. So before I blabber and bore everybody, let's get started.
Mudroom, and I've got a load of laundry going, and this is the first load of laundry that I am running. We just got our water hooked up late last night, and so it's been actually really scary turning things on, letting the water flow, because I'm very paranoid about water. And we just, as you guys saw a few videos ago, we were tiling.
Kind of a weird way to start out this video. I am trying to give her grace and a little bit of patience, but kind of an odd thing to start out talking about how you're nervous about water and how you're doing laundry, and starting out, you know, this video where you're literally, again, we're talking about your literal nieces and nephews being victims of child abuse at the hands of your sister. And this is a video that you're choosing to make, but you're starting it out just like in the last video. I felt like it was really weird for her to talk about new house construction and all of their hopes and dreams when the title and the thumbnail and everything is obviously bringing people here because Ruby's children were abused, horrifically abused. And she's starting this out by you know, talking about water and doing laundry and stuff. It's just a little strange. And before anyone wants to get upset at me for having that opinion, I also understand that maybe it's maybe this is just a technique that her mind is using to kind of protect her in a way, and it's coming out a little weird. But hey, when you're sharing to an audience and it's public content, everybody is going to respond to it in a little bit of a different manner. And as always, I'm here to give you guys my transparent thoughts, and I just find it a little weird, but let's keep going.
Where the washer and dryer was going to sit, and we got the washer and dryer in, and I just thought I would try a load out. And I'm sitting here because I'm worried that it's gonna shake like crazy and bust out the tiles and water's gonna explode everywhere, you know, just like expecting the worst but hoping for the best. And so far it's very quiet. It's very quiet. So far it's working. We'll see. And so I thought I would just sit here and answer this question because I thought it was a really good question. And I do need to preface, I want to just explain the state that my body is in. I made some stories this morning that obviously I got really emotional over. I haven't gone a single day without crying, I don't think. I did go a couple of days when we were camping. That felt really good, but no, I cried when I was camping too. But they're getting less frequent. My cry sessions are getting less frequent and less intense. But I'm sitting here just with my guts constantly feeling like, it's funny because I feel like I have to be so filtered in order to say what I'm thinking, but I have no one that I'm answering to. And so at first my few videos, the only thing that I was thinking was, if this sentence gets taken out and put in the media, what is that going? I was trying to make sure that each sentence wasn't going to be taken out of context, but I am now to a point where it's okay to say what I'm thinking because it is going to be taken out of context and you just have to live with that.
I imagine that this is very, very difficult to have all of this play out on a very public stage and have media and social people on social media and YouTube commenters that either know of this situation or they don't know of this situation. They know Bonnie, they don't know Bonnie. They know Ruby, they know Kevin. I imagine that it's very difficult to have all of this playing on a public stage, but at the same time, with a platform comes power. And I think that it's really important for her to be very transparent and open with how she's feeling. And instead of trying to construct every sentence to fit what she thinks might be right, I would rather have a very unfiltered. I think that it's time for the you know, curtain to fall on these like family vlogging channels that seem to be so prim and proper and everything is great and we're just a family sharing what our kids, you know, how our kids are growing up or whatever spiel they want to put in front of it. It's time to have an unfiltered conversation about family vloggers, the things that go on behind the camera lens, or, you know, whatever, the parasocial dynamics of all of this. I am just tired of this filtered image, and I think that she could set an example, but let's keep going.
So I'm actually okay with that. But I'm living with this constant fear. And I almost feel, and I say almost feel like it's an irrational fear, like maybe there really is nothing to fear, but I have fear in me. When you have so many people that are mad and disgusted with you, it brings an element of fear. And I'm not super fearful, but it's kind of like an underlying emotion for me right now. I've always done this when I'm watching a show. I'll tell this to Joel all the time. If someone's, well, that was a bad example. I was gonna say if someone's being arrested, if someone is getting in trouble for something, I feel like I'm in trouble. So typically I don't watch scary movies because I just feel like that's me. I take on the emotion of the movie. I take on the emotions of people around me. I take on a lot of feeling. And so with the current situation, I feel like I'm on trial. I feel like I'm in trouble. So my emotions are in a really weird place. And the reason that I want to share that with you is because I feel like it can be helpful. And the reason I say that,
I think instead of her feeling like she's in trouble, I don't know, like I just think of like, where's the heartache and the sorrow for these kids? I get it. The adults are going through a very difficult time. They're being criticized and all of this kind of stuff. But like, and I can have some sympathy for that, but I constantly think about these children who are so, so young and they're going to have to carry all of this with them literally for the rest of their lives. And it seems like, I don't know.
Is because I had mentioned really simply that I had some really strong sad emotions when I watched peers go through some really horrible things publicly, and it really hurt me. And a lot of people told me, thank you for saying that, because it gave me permission to feel sad for you. Like they were feeling weird or awkward about feeling bad, and it's not weird at all. It's very compassionate. And so I have just decided that I just want to say what I'm thinking, say what I'm feeling, and there's a lot that I have to say. And I've just been really mindful and thoughtful when and how I want to say it, but there's a lot. There's a lot. But for now, I want to answer the question for you. The question is, how did you explain everything to your kids? As you know, Ruby's family and my family were very intertwined. I have many kids that are the same age as Ruby's kids, and I was the first sibling to start having kids after Ruby, and so we immediately started raising our kids alongside each other. After Ruby started implementing what she was learning in Connections, her actions naturally bled through her family. And so when the kids would get together and play, they would start correcting my kids, and essentially they were counseling. I'm just listening for the washing machine. Essentially, they were counseling and giving what they had learned in therapy. They were teaching that to my kids, which was odd, and that had caused some friction between the cousins. And we had always done these sleepovers. Ruby and I.
There was a long history of really wacky stuff that Ruby and Kevin were doing long before Jody was in the picture. And I understand that things got much worse and much more insane as Jody entered the picture, and then Connections and all of that kind of stuff. But let's also not act like Ruby and Kevin were normal parents. anywhere near normal, because I always say, what is normal anyway. But there were some big alarm bells long before Jody was even around. And that's all been exhibited on the 8 Passengers of Vlogs for years. And Bonnie has voiced her own really weird beliefs when it comes to raising kids. So maybe they thought that all of that was normal, and then the stuff with connections kind of sent it over the edge, which I understand that side of it. But let's also not act like things were, kind of the standard before the connections stuff happened.
I often did kid swapping, and I would take the boys, she would take the girls, or she would take a few kids, I would take a few kids. And I made a video on this about no more sleepovers, but that was very surface level for what was going on. And to be honest, I didn't have a specific reason of saying, oh, well, this happened and this happened, so no more sleepovers. And
I want to know from the parents in the comment section down below, if you are a parent or a caregiver, like a full or part-time caregiver for a child where you're making decisions for that child, I want to know how you guys feel about this, because there has been a conversation happening online that I've seen at least for the past couple of years, and it's nothing that I've ever brought to my channel, but there's been a lot of parents and caregivers over the last couple of years making the decision that they're not allowing their kids to spend the night at anybody's house. They don't allow kids to sleep at their house, and they don't allow their kids to sleep at anybody else's house. And obviously we're just living in a really wacky world right now. It seems like every single day there's something on the news, there's something happening on social media where there's just something weird or scary or detrimental or tragic that happens that involves adults, kids, teenagers, like whatever it is. And I think that that's kind of pushed some parents into this, okay, well, that's one thing that we can eliminate right now is no more sleepovers, no more spending the night at a friend's house. And I want to know how you guys feel about that, because, when I was growing up, it was never like a risk or anything like that. But my dad, until I got into like high school, he was not a fan of ever allowing me to spend the night at someone else's house. I could go and hang out for a little while, but he was just always very cautious. And then once I got into high school, a few times, it wasn't a regular thing at all. But then I remember a couple times, like, he let me spend the night at a friend's house if it was, really close to our house, which happened probably less than 5 times at the very most, which I can't even think of all 5 times. But how do you guys feel about that? What are you, like, is that what you're doing with your kids? Is that something that is kind of the norm now? Is that what is that like a change that a lot of people are making? How do you feel about sleepovers? Sound off down below.
that was what was the hard part. My kids were getting uncomfortable, and there was nothing specific that had happened other than, we're not having fun anymore. Things are feeling kind of weird, and I was feeling the same way. And so it was a really big deal when I told Ruby that I don't feel comfortable having sleepovers or switching kids with you anymore. That was a very big deal. She was mad. She was mad when I told her that. And the only thing I can say is you have to follow your gut. You have to follow what you feel. And what you feel is...
You have to also listen to your children. And, I mean, nobody needs me to tell them that, obviously. But I've seen things and heard things myself where kids have voiced concerns and they're not addressed in enough time. Listen to your kids, man.
Only right for you. It's not right for anyone else. It's strictly only right for you. And so after I had made that decision, I felt a lot better. And then between then and when Ruby cut our family off, there wasn't a lot of time and there wasn't a lot of communication after that, because Ruby was really upset that we wouldn't join connections. She was upset that my kids didn't want to follow in the pathway that she was having her kids follow, as far as just like mindset and way of doing things and verbiage. A lot of it had to do with her verbiage. And so from the very beginning, it was just kind of known and integrated with the kids that things weren't right.
If someone pitches something to you and they get upset that you're not going to join, that is probably a massive red flag. Why do you care that I'm not going to join the weird little club or cult that you're in? If you're showing anger out of that, that tells me everything I need to know, and I'm probably going to cut you off too. I don't care if you're a sister, brother, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whatever. No.
We're not going to do sleepovers anymore, and that was kind of part of their decision as well, because it didn't feel right to them. And then when Ruby cut us off, there was no hiding it from the kids. Like I've said before, we would talk ourselves in circles, and there were days where I just couldn't even get out of bed, because the things that she was accusing my parents of, the things that she was accusing us kids of, they were just flat out made up stories from our childhood. And we didn't take it lightly. And this is where it was really difficult, because we sat down together as a family and we said, okay, are the things Ruby's accusing the family of, are these true? Because we are not about to allow things to go on in our family that are wrong. You know, if there's anything going on, we need to know about it. Or did we really grow up and were the things that Ruby was saying really going on, and maybe I just didn't know about it? And so, you know, my mom and dad had a meeting with every one of us kids, and we all just came to the conclusion that, no, this is a lie. But it's not like we just dismissed what she said in the beginning. It was, no, we took it very seriously, and we all asked each other individually. And so as things have...
Okay, so basically things were bad, then they got worse. So her kids were probably not super surprised when they learned that Ruby got in trouble. However she's going to say she explained it to them. It probably wasn't a surprise, because this was obviously a gradual, it was a downhill slope with Ruby. It wasn't just overnight things got really crazy. And, you know, again, like, I understand that everything got awful when Jody entered the picture. I understand that. I got it. Good. But a lot of people tend to not focus on all of the other stuff that we saw being published by 8 Passengers for the years leading up to Connections. And that's the thing that people seem to be missing. It seems to be like, okay, well, let's talk about Jody, Connections, and call it the last couple of years. But there was years and years and years of really questionable behavior being put onto YouTube featuring her kids. And when people would call it out, it was like, oh, that's fake outrage. Oh, you don't understand the Franke family because they are Mormon and you're not. But guys, call it what you want. Like, wacky is wacky. And if I look at something and think that it's wacky, it probably has nothing to do with, unless I strictly say, oh, this is strictly because of this religious teaching that is attached to this action that we're seeing. Wacky is wacky. That's how I feel about it.
Unfolded now, we can see that this is something that Jody has done, is she gets in people's lives and she plants these ideas or accusations against people when that is just not true. And so we really came to the conclusion that the things she's saying are untrue. We don't know why she's saying this. We don't know what her end goal is. In the beginning, I just thought, well, she's making things up so that she has something to discuss in therapy, is honestly what I thought. So for how distraught I was and for how debilitating it made us when Ruby cut us off, and that sounds very basic and I won't go into all the details, but it was the things that she was accusing all of us of they were just abhorrent, but also...
That's really tough when, you know, your own family is trying to lie on you. But for me, if a family member was trying to lie on me and then they cut me off, being cut off would come as a relief. Good riddance, bye. Like, you know, you're doing all of this crazy nonsensical stuff anyway, making my life a living hell. I wish that you would have cut me off sooner. And in fact, if a family member is coming out with outright lies, chances are I'm going to cut you off before you can cut me off.
Comical at how untrue they were. And so, you know, you can't hide when you're used to meeting with the family so often, and you know, Christmas was around the corner, Thanksgiving was around the corner, you know, Halloween was around the corner, and when you're involved with your family members in all of these activities, there is zero way of hiding it from the kids. And I don't think I wanted to hide it from the kids, and so I just told them what was happening as it was happening, but keeping it very surface. Just, Ruby doesn't want communication with our family. We're not allowed to talk with our cousins anymore. And that was very difficult on my kids. My kids cried. They cried often, and they wanted to write letters, but we weren't allowed to write letters. They wanted to send packages. We weren't allowed to send packages. And so it was a loss for my children. And so that took a lot of time to come to terms with. And
it's tough too with these family vloggers, because they decide to put all of their kids out there and make public figures of not only themselves but also all of their children. And when something like this happens, which thank God is not the norm, it is not it doesn't happen very often, luckily, but you have to kind of explain to your kids what's going on, because in a family that is not public figures and they're not known on social media, you might be able to shelter your kids until they are a little bit older, and you can explain to them on a level that is correct for their age. But when you're public figures and all of this stuff is happening and it's so loud and so public, and people know your family from social media, it's tough to keep them sheltered for very long at all. You know, it sucks.
And years later, that sounds so wild to say, but years later, you know, they still bring it up, and you know, when are we going to get to see them? When do we get to know them again? And I had just let them know so that they had some sort of expectation. I just said, when you're 18, you'll be able to reach out and you'll be able to see if you can form a relationship then. And so that's how I told my kids. They've just known from the very beginning that this was the situation. Sitting down to edit, and I realized that I didn't even say how I told the kids about Ruby being arrested. And how it happened was that morning, Joel and we actually got up and we got all the way ready. I was like, Joel, we've got to fix your hair for today. I want to get my hair done, my makeup done, like I want to get dressed, and I want to film this really special video with you today. And so we were filming all day together. We had the music on, and I told him, I said, I don't want today to feel stressful because this is a really big video that we need to make. And so we were in the middle of doing that. We had got lunch that day together. It was such a beautiful day, and it was the end of the day. And we still had a lot of work left ahead of us, but we were, you know, the kids got home from school, and so we were all standing on the stairs together, and we were like listening to music. We were talking about the kids' day at school. Then my sister Julie called, and I answered. I put her on speaker, and I was like, hey, Julie, how are you? What's going on? And immediately I knew something was wrong. And as she was telling me, it was just like, I think we were learning as the conversation went on. So Julie told me, and immediately I was like, get Ellie on the phone. And so, you know, we got Ellie on a three-way, and I was like, Joel, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna take the kids home. I'm like, you stay here, wrap things up. I'll be like, so it was just, honestly, like our whole world just kind of came down tunnel vision. And so me and Julie and Ellie, we stayed on the phone, and we didn't get off the phone. As we were learning more details, we couldn't let each other go. We just stayed on the phone together, I think for hours that night, and my kids didn't leave my side. And you know, we came home, and we were like, I'm getting like cold thinking about it. I was like putting together dinner. Julie was driving her kids around. Ellie was wrangling her kids, and we just couldn't hang up, and we didn't even talk until we knew something more. And when the kids went, you know, we all said a family prayer. I think we prayed together over the phone. That's something that's very common that we've had to do. We did call my parents that night, and that was very difficult. I think we were up all hours of the night. We just couldn't not be on the phone together, even though there was nothing to be said. The next morning, the kids were like, did you hear anything else? You know, they would come home, and you know, I would just update them as I knew things. And I feel like that was really good for the kids. I think that they would have worried more had they been wondering what was going on, or if they could see how upset we were. But that's how the kids found out, is they found out with me. And obviously I've kept details away from the kids, things that they don't need to know, and things that would just hurt them. The gist of everything. They've known the gist of everything the entire time. And for me, that feels better than sitting down and having a big, huge blow to them learning something big. And I think it's been nice that we've been able to digest it together as a family. We all care so deeply about each other's feelings and we worry how each other is doing, but doing it together, the kids, my siblings, my parents, neighbors, friends, is that we are taking care of each other, because when one person is strong, the other isn't, and vice versa.
That is the update from Bonnie. Now, Ellie is the only sister who has been radio silent on this entire situation. No statements, no comments, no, Instagram posts that's vague or anything like that. So I hope that Ellie is okay. I want to say there has been, I've seen a little bit of chatter of people saying, well, I don't really know if Bonnie should be kind of making these videos and saying this stuff publicly and all of this. Here's how I feel about that. Number one, to these family vloggers and stuff, this is like habit. So for her to step away from making videos would probably just be, mental torture for her. But I actually like to hear from her. And I like to hear her frame of mind and what she's thinking and what she is feeling within reason. Now, I don't think that she should come on here and trauma dump on everybody. But based on the couple of videos that I have seen that she has put out, I feel like they've been in the middle. I don't feel like they've been, over divulging too much information, but I also don't feel like they're fake and phony and scripted. I actually think that she's doing a pretty good job at kind of sitting in the middle and just telling people how she feels. Now, do I think that the house updates and talk about the washer and dryer is a little awkward? Absolutely, especially when we're talking about her nieces and nephews being tortured and physically abused. Just, it's a weird placement to mention what's going on with your house. Nobody cares what's going on with your house or your washer and dryer and tile and all this kind of hoopla. That's just how I feel. But I'm also not going to say, oh, well, she shouldn't be making videos, because I just don't think that's fair. The other thing that I've been seeing from people is, Bonnie shouldn't be making videos to make money off this situation. Guys, like, here's how I feel about that. At the end of the day, this is Ruby's sister. So if news outlets and commentary channels like myself are making monetized content around this because it is news and it's unfolding right in front of us, what kind of idiot would I look like to say, oh, well, Bonnie shouldn't be making content about her own sister being exposed as a child abuser? So that to me is just very silly. But I do worry about Ellie. What's going on with Ellie? And I hope that all of the people in this entire family, adults, children, doesn't matter. I hope that all of them are in some form of therapy that is outside of the Mormon Church. That might be wishful thinking, but I hope that they are surrounded by people who are, seasoned and ready to deal with the long road of recovery that is in front of them. Because obviously Ruby's kids are just, they have the longest road of recovery in front of them. But for her other family members, this is also negatively impacting them. Obviously not in the same manner. It's not even comparable. But I do hope that they have people that are actually qualified to help them through this. I know a lot of people are really coming down on Bonnie for, making these videos, but I just want to re-clarify what I said a minute ago. She is in her right to make these videos. Do I agree with everything that Bonnie has done or said or presented on YouTube? No, I don't. In fact, I think a lot of the things that she has put out are extremely problematic, and I fully disagree with them. But as far as her being entitled to share her own opinion, it's not like she's having these conversations with her kids in front of a camera in order to get their reaction so that then she can post it on YouTube. She's entitled to share how she is feeling. So that's how I feel about this as of right now. We will see what happens, you know, as things continue to progress. But in all fairness, when Ruby's family members speak, I will listen and I will bring it to you guys. So that's the update for today. If you like the video, please leave a like and a comment. And if you'd like to see more from me in the future, please subscribe. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.